Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you're listening to this is your host, Monique Watson of the Victory Podcast. I just wanted to drop in and share with you all my special crossover episode with the Good Morning Show of WBOK 12:30 a.m. In New Orleans, Louisiana. We talked a bit about the election like everyone else is talking about, and politics and the black community and all kinds of good stuff. So I hope you enjoy it. And thanks for listening.
You're listening to The Good Morning Show with Oliver O.T. Thomas.
We're back. Welcome back to The Good Morning Show. Oliver O.T. Thomas, the early bird in time. WBOK listening audience, man. We had to thank Jeff Thomas, man. Always a lively discussion, man. But the lines were lit. We didn't get a chance to even complete Jeff's agenda, man, but the stuff we talked about was definitely important, man, and good conversation with one of the great thought provokers of our time right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Like
I would say, no doubt about it, man. Look, but right now, one of our contributors over the last several months, all the way from the Bay Area, but New Orleans home girl, Miss Monique Henry Watson. She's the podcast host of the Victory Podcast. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show.
Thank you for having me, Oliver, and thank you, Professor. It's always good to join y'all, even virtually over the phone.
So first of all, we hope the view from the Bay is fine. We know you're still looking across America, especially with hosting the podcast. How are you and your husband out there? Everybody okay with the virus? How are things going?
We're going well. We're doing good. I'm actually in the New Orleans area for this weekend. Today is my mother's birthday. I won't tell her age on the radio, but it's a special birthday, so we made sure to make our way this way. But the Bay is doing well. California is doing well with their cases. Mm-hmm. I stay busy. My professional non-hosting life is that of a health, environment, and safety manager for a Fortune 500 company's research and development site. So I'm pretty busy with all the changing and emerging regulations for the CDC.
And I think your husband's with Facebook, Google right now on the West Coast?
Yep, he's with Facebook. So we stay pretty busy.
So let's get right into it. And for folk who, if you don't know Monique Henry Watson, the host of Victory Podcast, all these social issues, economic issues, she stayed on top. She's diligent, stays on top of them. Your take on this presidential race or this election right now, the fact that it's over, but it's not over, Monique Henry Watson.
I mean, I'm with everyone. I think everyone has become a pundit, a data analyst, and trying to count electoral votes as best they can, right? Mm-hmm. I know my mom, being the scientist, and my sister, medical student, and all this kind of stuff, they've run their numbers and predicted the Georgia bit as it was coming on early. And it's very interesting. Some are calling it the revenge of the Johns. John Lewis's district is what put Biden over top in Georgia, and also John McCain in Arizona. Biden is leading there. So it's revenge of the Johns, and some would say that the spirit world is listening and participating in this election, even through the afterlife. So it's quite the election. I don't think it was the blue wave, and there's still some opportunities for us to gain seats in the Senate. These votes are still trickling in. So it's not over.
I want you to address that because Prof and I talked about it, and I think I don't think we've heard enough national discussion about it, but that's what you get here on the Good Morning Show. When we were talking off air about, in many cases, it wasn't the blue wave that you thought, especially given the new voters. Given as well as Biden is doing, even though we have a late count. But it really was not that blue wave, and it's kind of becoming more obvious that Republicans were actually part of ousting Trump. If you look at what the Republican Party done in Georgia, as well as the ones who came forward in Arizona and out west. Miss Henry Watson.
So my thoughts on that is definitely, I think Biden has early on put himself as a throughout his political history, the ability to reach across the aisle and some of that more moderate. I mean, the entire Democratic Party has definitely moved more left over the last few years as a whole spectrum shifted left. So he's still more left than he was years ago. And I think some of the things are incorporating some of those sides of the coin. But he has long been known as a straight shooter and a very straightforward person. And I think in places like we're seeing it in Pennsylvania and some of these more blue-collar, all about the hard work type of places, that's been able to move and motivate folks, right? And I think it's in a way that makes them comfortable, right? If we look at his demographics, right, he's an older white man, and that can make a lot of folks comfortable. Let's say it for what it is. It's just facts. I'm not maybe not my personal opinion or whatever, but I think it's in a way that is something that moves the needle in the way that they needed it to. So, yeah.
So you're not surprised in many cases by many of the areas where Trump should have done well that Biden did well?
Not at all. Not at all. I think on both sides of the coin, many people living in the Bay Area, and especially in where I work, it's sort of a bubble of like blue as New Orleanians who maybe voted on that side of the aisle can attest to versus the rest of the state. There's different pockets of blue and red that exist. And so if you live in your bubble, you may be surprised, especially on the initial day of it, it's even this close. But I think having lived in California, Washington, D.C., New Orleans, I've lived in three coasts, tri-coasts, I guess it is. And you see a little bit of everyone everywhere. I think everyone is different, and I disagree a little bit with y'all's earlier point on the morning of Professor that, people south of the Dixon line, black folks, are all the same. I think, as there's a running joke, we are not a monolith is evident and true, but I think there are some threads that tie us together, of course. But, I'm not surprised at all.
Sure.
Yeah, I know some people would disagree with that, but I think where I'm going with that is this, is that we have all been or all experiencing the same type of oppression south of the Mason-Dixon line. Right. That we all have the same type of heritage. We come from the same places, and that we're all fighting the same battles. And I think that the most educated person in Atlanta is equal to the most educated person in New Orleans. But when you step outside of those cities, when we step outside of New Orleans and we go to the river parishes, and we go to some of these other rural areas in Monroe and Shreveport and Bogalusa and some of these areas like that, you're going to experience the same type of black person. And it was our inability to galvanize this type of vote that led to us not being able to oppose Senator Cassidy as opposed to what's happening in Georgia.
I think the difference is you didn't explain it like that earlier.
No, I didn't. Yeah. I didn't give any context
to it. Right.
I didn't give any context to it. Yeah,
right.
But we see in Georgia, Stacey Abrams was able to galvanize and empower 800,000
around a common agenda.
And that's why the two senators in Georgia are being currently opposed. And stand a good chance of being flipped. And so, I just think south of the Mason-Dixon line that we got to get our act together.
And that's a great segue to what one of the questions I had for you, Monique, was that for the last several months we heard about the power of the women vote, and specifically the black women vote. As a black African-American female, especially that works in the corporate world, your take on the influence that it's had socially and politically?
Well, as per usual, black women are keeping this country together. We've done it for centuries, and we continue to do it again.
Go ahead.
If you look at the statistics, 96, 95%, depending on whose study you look at, folks, as the numbers are coming in, have voted and stayed with the Democratic Party, and in this case specifically voting for Joe Biden. And Kamala Harris, a fellow Howard University alumni like myself, have to put that in there with some context. Because I think that's what is especially true for black women in this election, similar to how folks looked at Obama when he was running. Seeing someone of yourself, whether it's at the top or the bottom of this high-level ticket, is an amazing effort and not to be discounted as an effort. Especially given the dynamics as healthy and youthful as Joe Biden can seem. He is still 8 years old?
78.
78 years old, and I think black women were ready to stand up and say, okay, I am absolutely comfortable with a more than qualified woman that looks like me to be a heartbeat away from the president, that's absolutely ready to step into the role. And I think that definitely influenced their vote. And then we come back to the dynamics, and we can go for hours and hours on the dynamics that exist between the 82% that voted for, that only 82% of black men voted for Biden. So that means there's about 18%, depending on what you look at it, 20% of black men that voted for Trump.
Right.
And that gave me pause. I can't on this radio program say what the first thought that came to my mind, but, you know, there's that dichotomy of that we as black women stand behind our black men, but do they often, as always, support our, and the flip side. So it's not always true. I'm not trying to, look, I'm married to a beautiful black man. I love black men, but it's just an interesting dynamic that we're seeing and observing.
Well, I think it's a part of what the dominant structure has done to divide us. And Prophet and I have talked about it before. Many black men feel that they have no value or no place in the Democratic Party. Many think that they're being pushed aside for black women in terms of business, social, and economic opportunity. Whether that's true or not, I think there has to be a conversation and a healing within our own community, Prof.
Yeah, they got problems at the house.
Right.
Yeah, it starts at home. They got problems at the house because black women don't understand how they got from point A to point B at the expense of the black man. Yeah. They think they just arrived here because they were better, and that's not necessarily the case. So you got to understand the historical perspective of how a black woman was elevated over the black man during the time of
while the knee was still on his neck.
During the time of affirmative action.
I hear you, but when you talk to women like Monique and many others, they're very conscious of that. But I don't think we've had the conversation to talk about how we heal from that. And I think that's a deeper piece at some point, especially with young women and intellectuals and academics like yourself, because this election did prove and show us that there is a divide. And I don't like it because it doesn't strengthen our community, and it doesn't ultimately take us and our families where we need to be.
Well, I get all of that, and I'm not about to go there with this.
No.
But I get
feel you, Prof.
But I'm not going to have my wife or my woman at home making me feel less than a man. I don't care if she make more money than me, if she got a better job than me, because I understand.
You're still a partner.
Well, I understand how you got how women were elevated over the black man during affirmative action. When they had to fill a requirement for a minority,
they could fill two
birds with one stone. Yeah, and while we were locking black men up.
Well, what I think Monique is saying is that there has to be a conversation and healing around.
But black women are not the savior of the African American race.
Okay.
And I said it. They're not the savior. They're not the savior.
You're on the record.
No.
Yeah, they're not the savior.
Monique Henry Watson, Miss Victory Podcast, your response.
I'm not. I didn't mean to allude that we are the savior, but I'm just telling what the numbers say about who's stood with and stood on the side of, because on the ballot was not just Democrats versus Republicans, right? In this top level of the ticket, down the ballot, local, that's sort of its own thing in different kind of communities and things like that. But the top of the ticket was not about Democrat and Republican. This, unfortunately, in the last couple of years, the erosion of what it means to be, it used to be, and I've only been on this earth almost 33 years, but it used to be a lot of, you could talk about, how we were going to get things done was the discussion. We do side A, side B, more conservative on this side, more liberal leaning on that side. But we would ultimately have the forethought, and a lot of elected officials would try to push towards policies that did the greatest good for the greatest number of people. That was sort of the running thread. Whether they achieved that, whether there was also an undercurrent of staying in power and all that, that's definitely true and could be held, but definitely what was on the ballot this time, and what a lot of people, I think, responded to, and why we're seeing it's leaning towards Vice President Biden to become President Biden, is that we've gotten away from that ability to have that discord, and we've gotten away in that these dog whistles that the person occupying the office of the president, I won't use his name, he doesn't earn it, the person occupying the office of the president has pulled these dog whistles and encouraged people in a discord that is that is not productive of who we want to be. It is who we are in America today, unfortunately, as the numbers hold, so that's not a shock. But this definitely proves that there are two Americas.
Monique Henry Watson, the lines are lit up. Hey, wow, you've attracted some major academics and intellectuals. Doctoral candidate, Brother Assad, you're on with Monique Henry Watson.
Good morning, Big O. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little louder if you can turn your volume up, but you sound clear.
Let me see if I can turn it up. But I called in actually because first of all, I thank you guys for taking my call.
Thank you.
I called in because I wanted to give Prof his props for his last statement as it relates to how the system has elevated black women, and it's not that it was black women's fault. They just happen to be the beneficiaries of a system that was rigged against us. But man, so I just want to give Professor his props because I appreciate him being able to say that and to
being man enough,
bold enough to say that, because in this era it may sound like patriarchy. You can take a lot of flack for saying stuff like that, but I want to give him his props because it's absolutely the truth.
Thank you. And first, Brother Assad, we look forward to, man, as you continue to write, man, another segment with you, man. We appreciate you, good brother.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you. And, of course, we see that, Monique, I'm glad we started a discussion because it seems like there needs to be a deeper delve into that water, especially if we're going to move forward. Look, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, one of our contributors on social media said they would like you to define, because your comment, the new left. When we come back,
all right,
the host of Victory Podcast, none other than Monique Henry Watson. You don't want to miss it. We'll be back after the break.
You're listening to The Good Morning Show with Oliver O.T. Thomas.
We're back. Oh, I love our listening audience. Boy, we are back. They will keep us in check, buck us up, and inform us all at the same time, man. Welcome back, Mick. I'm so messed up by Just in Time on social media. He said, man, Prof got on that 3-piece suit, man. He gonna be on that panel today. He said, Prof's so tough, right? He's taking 2-syllable words and making them 5.
Y'all low down.
Smarty order, you. Monique Henry Watson, welcome back. First of all, thank you. We're talking to Monique Henry Watson. She's the host and the founder of the Victory Podcast, man. Very popular podcast moving across this country. That question, before we get to the lines and the lines lit up, and just in time, thank you. The question from Mr. Terry, Kerwin Terry in Houston, he said, define the new left.
So I would say, I mean, once again, I'm not ultimately a political analyst, but I think of some of the things that have become some cornerstones of the political party, of this idea of, universal health care, forgetting student debt, was more, things that, I wasn't on the Bernie, but things that Bernie Sanders brought to the forefront in the last election cycle are things that a lot of people say, you know what, those are good ideas. These are things that people want. These are things that people need, right? I've lived in Canada, which had a universal health care system. Let me tell you, it is the business. For your everyday wear and tear, I had a slip on the ice, and I left out of the emergency room with a $25 crutch bill, and that was it. Those kind of things where that would be a detrimental financial impact on most people's
That's right.
Non-insured selves. It's definitely a thing. So those kind of ideas that were so far-reaching and that's too out there have been brought closer into some of the mainstays of the Democratic Party, right? Maybe slightly different ways, nuances to it, but those kind of principles are things that now the Joe Bidens, who are more moderate, are able to run on, because a lot of people said that would be able to set them up. Student debt forgiveness. That would imagine what that sets up with people, black men, black women,
That's right.
Minorities, whomever, that if you take that financial burden of that, income to debt ratio being reduced, their debt ratio being reduced, opening up to opportunities like home ownership, that then sets you up for a better financial future and all those kind of things. So a lot of those are two examples that kind of lean towards what this new left and new Democratic Party is a little bit more.
That makes sense,
of.
probably, because many of those things that they would have just slammed you for socialism, right? But principles of progressive public policy that actually benefit people, I've never heard it quite defined like that. Kendra, thank you.
But it can't exist in capitalism.
Yeah.
That's the whole. Healthcare is one of the major capitalistic industries that is billions.
Don't we
of
know
dollars.
it?
Exists in other capitalist communities,
It's
other
billions of
capitalist
dollars.
countries.
And student loans
It does.
keep you from reaching the level that everybody else reaches. Just imagine if you didn't have any student loans, then maybe it's possible for you to become the next Jeff Bezos. Or
I play ball.
Yeah.
Let's
We all not
It's a whole
gifted
different
that
thing.
let's Shay, you're on with Monique Henry Watts of the Victory Podcast. Shay, you're on the air.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. I was going to just touch on what y'all just said, and that is to remove this health care system, such as they tried to do with the Obamacare, it would cause, let's say, for poor people, take that burden away from them, and they could be equal with the elite, the whites. So that would be just one way to keep them down. But my initial call was going to be talking about the place of the black male. Well, what I observed in elementary school was I never saw a boy monitor the class when the teacher left the classroom. It was always a girl. And girls seem to be so studious. And I go back to Sam Cooke had a song called the Cha-Cha-Cha, and in it, the boy said, I'm going to teach you how to do this dance. He said, after we practiced for a little while, she was doing it better than me. So it just speaks a lot about this black female. And I want to lead with this one other thought. I feel like I don't have any scientific proof of it, and I don't really believe it, but I got the number 20% is missing from the black community, the black culture, and it's very significant, this 20% that I speak of, and that 20% is the black male input. Let me correct it, because I got to put this in there. The right black male input, because the black females are the predominant. I look at the church, the schools, everything that's active. You got black females running it over. They just know what to do and how to do it. And with that, I'm out of here.
Yeah. Well, first of all, man, this maybe we can get Miss Henry Watson and some other women to at some point to have a deeper discussion about that, because I think the discussion right now lends to the fact that this is a conversation that's worthy. And I think there's some components, and especially, Monique, if we're going to move forward in strengthening our community, strengthening our couples, strengthening our races, there definitely needs to be some healing and some understanding there. Monique, get back to this whole the new left. And Mr. Terry said when you break it down like you just broke it down, he says he agrees in that the new left, instead of being threatening with this whole new socialism, this whole communism scare, taking components of the agenda that works other places. And I think you're right. I think in the past, folk would have totally rejected a Biden-Harris agenda. I think whites overwhelmingly would have voted against that. But I think we see those types of ideas and agendas progressing in the current environment. Am I correct?
Yeah, I believe so. I think that's definitely something that has resonated with people. Other folks, it depends on of course, how you frame it and how it's communicated, right? So you can flip that same agenda and information, and that's what the person occupying the office of the president has done, is you flip that in your messaging, and that's why we're transforming places like Miami-Dade County and different things. If you view that same kind of policies through the lens of communism and try and paint it with the brush of communism, that then turns away other people.
Yeah. Our Latino brothers and sisters in Florida don't have a good grasp of democratic socialism,
right,
which is different from
great point,
communism socialism.
That's right. That's right.
And so they don't really understand and distinguish the two, because you got to ask yourself, why is it that we would not want our nation to be healthy?
Right.
To be able to have health care.
Right.
Why is it that we
and make it a universal right?
And make it universal right. Why wouldn't we want that? You know, and so at some point we got to come back and deal with them. We can't just let them be. We got to come back and deal with that, and you know, because there's been a lot of propaganda associated around that. And we got to come back and deal with it.
So let's talk about that then. And man, I'm loving the momentum. And first of all, our call is 504-582-9422. If you're just tuning in, we're talking to Monique Henry Watson. She is the podcast host of High Tech streaming across this country, the Victory Podcast. You can sign on, subscribe to the Victory Podcast. Let's deal with that. Capitalism today. Prof and I have had extensive conversations about it. We've talked to intellectuals and academics who deal with disaster capitalism or capitalism. What is capitalism today? Is it being reshaped? What form of capitalism, Monique Henry Watson, are we operating under? And in terms of your generation, especially as a corporate executive, how do people view capitalism today?
So, of course, it all depends on who you ask, right? So, but I think what's really important is the lens of viewing capitalism in a way that lets balance with the ideas of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and eliminating the barriers to truly allow people to be on an even playing field, which has not been the case for the African American community for centuries upon decades. Centuries and centuries of slavery, decades on decades of Jim Crow and those kind of things, and then the microaggressions that exist today in corporate America. That, you know, if you do poll, you can ask anybody who works in any kind of major company, whether it's a Fortune 500 company, larger than a small business, where maybe they're the only person that looks like them in the room most times. Talk with my cousin, who's a big name in the world of venture capitalism. We've had a conversation on the Victory Podcast talking about that, and you almost get used to being that I am the only one that'll look like me when I walk into this room today. And so it's a different dynamic, and taking that and saying, okay, now, and making sure that we use those platforms, whether it's black women, black men, anyone who has those opportunities, to making sure that we're using that, and not like in a way that is, I got mine, you got to figure out how you're going to get yours. It's more of that Sankofa mindset of, I'm going to reach back and to go back and grab those and give those people opportunities. Now, you know, there's a lot of folks, and I agree with Prof to a point earlier, that I do think that affirmative action did negatively affect our brothers out there, our African American brothers. It absolutely did. At the same time, I don't want to paint it with a brush that my sisters, my African American sisters, were at all underqualified, or that us leading in positions or being the year of the woman is a negative on their abilities and capabilities. All right, my sister-in-law was texting me.
Monique Watson, let's stay right there for a minute.
Okay.
So where do we see, what is going to be the role of the black male in this whole new scheme of things as we move forward? What is going to be the role of the black male as women are now becoming more empowered? Just locally, we just elected 6 new female judges in Orleans Parish Criminal Court right here in New Orleans, with the possibility of a 7th. So what role, we have a female mayor. We have a viable female candidate in the race for the district attorney's office. So where do you see black men landing in this whole scheme of things?
I think black men definitely have a role. I think the idea of trying to pit it against black men versus black women, I'm not saying that you're doing that or trying to allude in that way, but I just want to make sure that we're clear that I think I see us as black men and black women having an opportunity. How that's working out in votes, I think, to the gentleman who was calling earlier, who mentioned about, the studious nature of African American women and the feeling, because we have both being a woman and being black against us that has often makes a number of people work even harder to overcome those issues. I think there is a place for black men, and there absolutely should be. The unfortunate thing in society that we've been working against is also with the criminalization and the inequity that exists in our criminal justice system. There's a lot of our most talented, smart, beautiful black men that are unfortunately behind bars. There's a good number of them there. There's plenty that are more unqualified that are not behind bars. I don't want to say that everyone that's behind bars and that there's no good men out there or anything like that. I do not want, and I'm not even trying to allude in that way. But there are a lot of talented people. Having done prison ministry recently in the Bay Area, I see a lot of smart, intellectual, powerful people that are behind bars as well. So I think there's absolutely a place for black men. I think it's not a us versus y'all. I think if any real strong black woman knows that you as a black woman also support your black men, and they should in turn support us. We should be supporting each other. I don't think there's a us either or. I think it's us and.
So
is how I see it.
I caught something you just said. You the prison ministry. So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. I got to ask you this question. Do you believe that we should be focused more on rehabilitating individuals that are incarcerated with respect to returning them back to society no matter what the crime is, as opposed to locking people up for long periods of time, giving them life sentences in prison?
I absolutely agree that we should be focusing on rehabilitation, and I'll probably, and y'all will get flack for this and send them my way to check us out.
That's okay. I get it all the time.
Yeah. So send your little nasty notes. That's fine. I absolutely agree that we should be focusing on the rehabilitation of people. I also think, and this may be even a more controversial view, that we should be legalizing all drugs like the state of Oregon does. And follow me on this walk, is that if you take away the criminalization, I think that eliminates that kind. It won't eliminate it completely, just like there's bootleg CDs and there's real CDs that you can buy, right? There's bootleg market. There's going to be always an illegal market for almost anything. But I think it eliminates the criminalization, and we focus on, just like alcohol is legal, and we focus on treatment for people who don't use it. And I am a person who's never taken a drug in my life. I enjoy my wine, big glasses of wine, the bigger the better. But I think those are the kind of things that decriminalizing nonviolent offenses to, I think your point, Prof, earlier, is absolutely where we should be focusing, and on rehabilitating folks, not locking the key and throwing it away. This system, as the criminal justice system in the way it's laid out today, it was never intended to be equitable to people that look like you and I. It was always intended to be a way to further the slavery type of control of black and brown people. That was always the intention. The idea of the police department was started off as a slave-catching mechanism. That's where that stuff started, and that's where the roots and the underbelly of it is.
Man, so, you got the lines lit up.
Go ahead.
No, we got a caller. You got people who want to talk to you. They enjoying the conversation. Go. They want to talk to you. John, you're on live from Marique Watson and the Professor. Good morning.
Good morning. Long time no chat. Been very busy. I hadn't had a chance to listen. How's everyone this morning?
All is well.
Let me start off by saying that, Democrats, and don't get it twisted, that this election, the Democrats thought they were going to waltz in there and it was going to be a slam dunk, but they're going to win, but it's going to be a pyrrhic victory, because it's more of a referendum on Trump, not so much that they like Biden and Kamala. It's just that they just like Trump even more, but they ain't too keen on the other candidates, okay? Secondly, Oliver, you there?
No, he stepped out. You're on live with the Prof. I'm holding it down.
Okay, how you doing? And secondly, about black women and their role and stuff, you got to remember, many years ago, black women understood the condition of situation that they were in as a people and how their man was subjugated. That's why many years ago, when the landlord or the bill collector would come to the door asking for money or this, that, and the other, the black woman understood, look, baby, I got this. Because they knew if man go there, two men, that friction, Now you're trying to belittle him in front of his family. He knocks him out, and now she knows she's going to lose her husband. Children are going to lose their father. But when his integration and all this stuff came in, it just sort of flipped. It's almost like the black woman started to turn on the black man. Because the situation we're living in is really, man, this is really, how can I say, it's an illusion. Because we're living in somebody else's construct. So there's black women have an illusion of power inside this construct. But as this system begins to break down, and it's going to break down, like the scripture says, for every man shall flee unto his own kind. One of the reasons why white women and Asian women and Hispanic women a lot of times follow their men, no question, right or wrong, ride or die, because they understand at the end of the day, they have to depend on their men for protection. The German man has an army for his woman. The Japanese man has an army for his woman. The Chinese man, the Russian man, the American white man. The black man has no army for his woman. So we living in another man's construct, but as this country divides, she's going to have to depend back on her man for protection too.
All right.
And that illusion is going to break down, and it's all written in the scriptures.
Thank you, John. We appreciate you. Monique Watson, did the African Americans or black people vote against Trump, or did they vote for Biden? Which one?
I would have to say that I think both is true, depending on who you ask. Of course, that's going to be my running thread. But I definitely think it was a vote against Trump, as well it should have been. I think there's no illusions that Biden is like a perfect candidate in all things that he would be to all people. I think you have much more potential to influence the policies and plans to affect actual change for the black community with Biden versus having Trump in office. So I think that's where people are putting their start. I think you have a much better plan as a starting point. I think there's so much more to still do that we need to impress upon with our senators, local leadership, and things like that. That's really, I agree that it was more referendum against Trump, but we are where we are as far as working through the primary process.
So how did we get?
We have as a candidate.
How did we get? Because I often ask myself this question: how do we get from? We had a very viable field of candidates when this whole nominating process started, right? We had candidates from every gender, from every ethnicity, just about. How did we end up with two old white men running for president? How did we get there?
So, I mean, I would say it had a lot to do with the different media coverage. I think because having such a wide field, it's the similar way at least, when Trump was running in 2016, you had such a wide field of candidates that there's kind of folks that end up being clustered together, and there's sort of infighting that happens, that sometimes those extremes then kind of rise to the top. And then, of course, like the Elizabeth Warren, some people struggle greatly with electing a woman. Same thing with Kamala, being a black woman especially. I think that's sort of where you start to kind of thin the herd out, and then you ended up with Joe Biden, someone that is sort of middle of the road, sort of more systemic, been around for a while, for better or for worse. So that's, I think, what shook out for people. I think you had some folks that were in that wide breadth of people that, people didn't resonate with. You had people that jumped in kind of later that were more of a distraction. So you end up splitting the vote across so many different fields and then kind of someone who's able to raise more money and is a well-known name recognition like Joe Biden is where it kind of rises to the top as far as standing out and becoming the candidate.
But many say that Joe Biden was actually part of the problem, part of the process, because he's been a senator for so long, probably almost 40 years. He's been serving in Congress. So hasn't he been, aren't we getting more of the same?
I mean, we are. I mean, his views and things, according to, if you read his plans and things, have changed over time. I think we'll see. I think having Kamala in there is hopefully going to flux and change a bit. I know she's been a senator for some time and been in politics for a bit with their DA role and things like that. It is a bit of more of the same. I think what we're looking for, because it's sort of a crazy pendulum swing for things. With Trump being in office, the threat of just foolishness and our political standing in the world and just craziness that comes out from a tweet that can change the dynamics and policy, that'll eliminate that kind of level of crazy is sort of what we went against, and that's kind of the idea of where Biden, I think, landed. I think there were other candidates that could have been equally qualified, that could have run at the top of the ticket, but that's not what shook out as far as all the different primaries and such. So.
All right, Ms. Watson. Now, you've demonstrated that you can swim. So I'm gonna go ahead on and bring you in the deep water. Yeah, we. All
right, hold on. Let me put my flippers on.
You're gonna need them. Yeah, because we're gonna be swimming with sharks right now. I'm gonna bring you into some deep water now. I'm gonna bring you some deep water because I want to ask you about the Obama administration because many African Americans are saying, and this is all hearsay, of course, but many African Americans are saying that we did not get anything as a people from the Obama administration, that everyone else benefited, that the Hispanic community benefited, that the LGBTQ community benefited. But we as African American people, all we got was a little Al Green. What do you say to that?
I would say, there was a lot of challenges. I think absolutely, with hindsight being 2020, you could look back and say that could Obama maybe have tried to do more. Very possible. The challenge of being the first black president, I think, was something that he pushed. He had to push everything he was able to do. Period. Was a push tooth and nail type of thing because of the obstructionism that we received on the other side of the aisle on almost every topic. So I think absolutely, if you look back with hindsight, you could say Obama could have done more. I think he did a lot that benefited people in general, maybe not as specifically for the black community. I think there's probably definitely more opportunities without delving deeper. I think his attempt at the Affordable Care Act of what he would have originally wanted versus what he was able to pass, there's still some gaps and opportunities there. It's better than what we had before then and was better before it got gutted significantly by this administration. So I think, yes, I think he could have done more. I think the challenge is that he was butting up against a Senate and a House kind of situations that are like very challenging on that front. And ultimately, the executive branch does not make legislation, so they execute it. That comes to their desk. So I think it really comes down to we really need to get, and I agree with and what you're seeing in mobilization in some of these states is focusing on the legislative body, the representatives, and the Senate especially would be, and we still have a chance to get some balance back in the Senate to be able to move and execute on some policies that'll help people of our community.
If you're just tuning in, we're talking to Ms. Monique Henry Watson, the host of the Victory Podcast, Become Victorious, all the way from California. She's here locally with us at the moment. And we're swimming in some deep water right now, so I just hope she keeps stroking. We recently nominated and confirmed Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. Some people say, some people are questioning as to why didn't President Obama nominate a black male or a black female to the United States Supreme Court with one of the two justice nominations that he had?
That's a great question. I would have to ask Obama if I get a chance to talk to him. I don't really know. I definitely think that was an opportunity. Also, I think he picked selections of folks that could get through. And, I don't know enough about the judicial options and who's kind of on the table to be qualified, though I don't know how qualified Amy Barron Coney is. I guess because what I'm hearing is this. What I'm hearing is that Obama sold his soul in order to become president, that he owed a whole lot of people a lot of favors, and that the ultimate plan was that Hillary Clinton was going to be the next president and that she was going to look out for everybody else. She was going to clean up, everybody else. She's going to take care of the African Americans, anybody else. She was going to make all those judicial appointments
that he was unable to make. But did he sell his soul? That's going to be the last one I ask you about him. Do you think he sold his soul?
No, I don't think so. I think he just was in a challenging environment of what he could and couldn't do, and trying to get things through so that something happens versus nothing. Maybe he did. Who knows? I'm not going to try and speak for President Obama. I think he did a lot of good that does benefit people and does benefit the African American community. Was it enough? No. But I mean, it'll never be enough. And I think relying on a president to expect to be the end all be all. I think a lot of things that affect people's everyday lives exist in closer to home, right? Your mayoral elections, your local government. There are effects on at a larger scale, but a lot of those down ballot, which is why I encourage people to vote outside of this. When y'all have the runoffs and the different elections here in Louisiana, when we have, the midterm elections, all this kind of stuff, those are the things that actually affect most people's day-to-day life. The taxes you pay, the infrastructure that changes, a lot of that happens at the state and local level. So it's critically important to kind of affect change in those places. The presidency is nice and kind of at a high level can affect things and prevent things from happening and what have you. But it's critically important to be just as civically engaged as we got people out to vote in this election. It needs to be in every single election. All
right, we got time for one more caller. Let's take this call. First time caller, Nicole, you're on live with the professor and Miss Monique Henry Watson. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to, point out, I know earlier the question was about Obama, why didn't he elect anyone to Supreme Court justice that was either a black female or a black male. I think it's important to also to look at the context of the time when that nomination was happening. During presidency, one of the major issues was that was coming up at the time was immigration, and the fact that there has never been a Hispanic woman, period, in the Supreme Court justice seat. And so I think that his approach probably had to do with, one, including Hispanic people as hey, these people are part of the court and they're able to have the highest, office of the court. And including them hey, these people are citizens just like everyone else, and they understand the law and all this kind of stuff. And then also, it's the first, if she wants, everyone needs to have the chance to have representation. There's already a black male on the Supreme Court. There's a second one. So, it was give them a chance, one. I think that was one, point of it. And I think to the end of the whole thing with criminal justice and everything like that, Obama made a lot of really great steps that were for police overview. But at the time, the culture was still shifted on the side of that this was a black issue. The overall culture. It wasn't until George Floyd when people realized start to really speak out and say that this is an American issue. So I think that that's something that he tried to do. But as far as it gaining traction, it has to gain traction on a local level. He did implement a lot of these acts that were designed to involve police oversight, which you can look up. Specifically, I can't even remember the names of them, but yeah, I'd have to have a computer in front of me.
All right, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Monique Henry Watson, how can we follow the Victory Podcast? How can we become a part of this thing?
So we're definitely on every podcast platform that you can think of. The best way to find your favorite podcast tool, go to our website at thevictorypodcast.com. There's a tab on there to where to listen. You can click on whether it's Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple, and take you straight there to subscribe. So thevictorypodcast.com.
Man, look, we sure appreciate this conversation. And look, if you need some content, holla at your boy, you hear? For sure.
I will definitely. We'll have you on and talk whatever you want.
Oh, man, I appreciate you. You've been great. Man, we want everybody to stay tuned because coming up next, we got the Neutral Ground with Kelda Marie Summers, Graylin Brian Banks, And man, you know, you got to keep it locked here because we are the fastest growing station in the Gulf South. We are WBOK 1230 AM. What New Orleans is talking about. Have a great day.
So thank you once again to Oliver O.T. Thomas, the professor. Lots of great conversation there. And thanks again for having me on the Good Morning Show on WBOK 1230 AM. If you want to listen more, to listen to what New Orleans is talking about, definitely check out WBOK1230.com. You can find the latest and the greatest and listen live there from anywhere in the world. And thank you, our listeners, listening to this episode. Please share this podcast with your friends, family, and even your enemies at thevictorypodcast.com, and check that page on where to listen to share across the various platforms that we're on. Also, while you're there on the website, please do support us through our merchandise on the merch page. You can find t-shirts, onesies, stickers, all kinds of great stuff, a laptop sleeve, your iPhone case, all kinds of great things. So please, please, please support us in that way as well. So I'll end this episode as I end every episode. Every problem has a solution. It's whether you're willing to do the work to find it. Let's do the work and be victorious.